Pro Group Management, workers' comp that works for you.
Welcome to Nevada Newsmakers. On the broadcast today, Sigal Chattah joins us. She's the Republican candidate for Attorney General, here for the whole show on an all-new Nevada Newsmakers.
Reckless Washington spending is driving up prices for Nevadans. Senator Catherine Cortez Masto voted to allow hundreds of millions of dollars of COVID relief funds to be wasted on frivolous projects not in Nevada. More silly inflationary spending. Senator Cortez Masto voted to allow a college to hire a poet in Connecticut and funding for 18th century French operas in Washington, D.C.? Tell Senator Cortez Masto to start voting against wasteful spending to stop inflation.
Hello, is this D&D Roofing?
Yes, it is. How may I help you?
You did such a great job on my roof. May I speak to the owner?
I am an owner.
Oh, can I speak to your supervisor?
Sure.
How may I help you?
I love your work. May I speak to the owner?
I am an owner. We're all owners. Well, that's why at D&D we work so hard to keep your home safe and sound.
Oh, no wonder.
D&D Roofing and Sheet Metal. Local, employee-owned, here for you.
Retail's impact on Nevada's economy? Enormous. 8,600 businesses, large and small, employing 145,000 workers. And last fiscal year, retail paid tax on nearly $60 billion in sales. We're the Retail Association of Nevada. We support retail, we help it grow, and we mean business.
RANNV.org.
Take a look at Pro Group Management and see how your workers' comp requirements can be met head-on. By taking a proactive approach, Pro Group can assure that your company is meeting or exceeding state and federal standards. As you move forward in your industry, Pro Group moves with you, simplifying regulatory tasks, clearing the way so you can get the job done and look to your future success. Pro Group Management, workers' comp that works for you.
Nevada Newsmakers Studio is located at the headquarters of the Nevada Trucking Association. Motion and purpose are a truck's greatest virtue.
This is Nevada Newsmakers with host Sam Shad, a no-holds-barred political forum. Now, from the Nevada Newsmakers broadcast headquarters, here is Sam Shad.
And back on Nevada Newsmakers, we're pleased to welcome back to the program Sigal Chattah. She is the Republican candidate for Attorney General. Pleasure to have you back on the program.
Thank you for having me back, Sam. Always great.
As I'm sure you saw the interview we did the Attorney General last week, and I wanted to give you the opportunity to respond to a whole bunch of the things that he brought up. And the most obvious one, and I know that you've talked about this before, but there's a lot of people out there that are familiar with this program may not have seen your responses. One of the things that was the most obvious was his comment that she wants to see me hanging from expletive crane. What is your response to that from him? Because he took that as a matter of great personal affront.
Well, first of all, let me address the issue that is, the 500-pound elephant in the room, right? He takes it as a racist comment and to accuse me, I'm a Yemenite Jew. I hit both markers. First of all, I'm a female Yemenite. Sam, you know that, Yemenite Jews in Israel were always treated, they called us Schwarze Chayes, which, for your viewers who don't speak Yiddish, it means black beasts, So to accuse me of being a racist is ridiculous. Now let's talk about the comment in and of itself, right? The comment was me comparing him to a leader of Hamas, and because that's what they do to traitors, what the Hamas does to traitors, it was just, again, this has been discussed over and over throughout numerous media outlets, that it was not necessarily tongue-in-cheek, but really that is how the discussion was going. And I think the more salient question should be, why would I compare him to a leader of Hamas. Now going into race wars with me would not be wise, because Aaron Ford stood by BLM and didn't denounce the fact that they were carrying signs from the river to the sea, which we all know what that means to Israelis. It means wipe Israel off the map. So, again, let's not get into race wars, because that comment and those actions were done long before I had ever made the comment about hanging him from a crane. So, and that's really where it's at.
Just a couple of other things on this topic. He said, she doesn't respect my dignity as a human, nor my humanity. How do you respond to that?
I don't think it has to do with respecting his dignity as a human. I think he's demonstrated over and over the level of corruption that we see, which warranted a comparison to a leader of Hamas. Remember, this conversation all stemmed from the fact that he opposed ESAs. Okay, this is somebody that's living high and mighty off of his money that he's made. The guy has 5 degrees. I mean, he's the poster child for for academics in this country, and all he does is flaunt his success, where really, when we look at the underprivileged and the demographic that he says he serves, it's really, these people are functionally illiterate. So when I compare him to a leader of Hamas, that is precisely how leaders of Hamas live. Look, I went to school in Switzerland. I went to school with Saudis. I went to school with, people from Dubai, where the literacy rate in Arab countries and in Arab nations is so low. But again, their leaders, they all send their kids to school in Switzerland. And it's the same thing with Aaron Ford. And I think it's great that Aaron Ford's kids get to go to GW and to get to go to these high schools. But at the end of the day, what about the children that he's supposed to serve in underserved communities? And that's where that conversation stemmed from. And that's why that comment was made.
Okay, last thing, he said, where he's from, especially directed towards a black person, that comment is racist.
Again, I addressed the racist thing. It wasn't racist. People don't hang people from cranes in the United States. Again, it was a comparison to him being like a leader of Hamas, which I explained why that came in that context when we're talking about education and ESAs and his blatant opposition to school choice. And without getting into the semantics of why school choice is important in this country, it wasn't racist. Like I said, I'm a Yemenite Jew. It's ridiculous to even say that.
He said that he's not standing in a room with you. No conversation, no debate.
Well, is that the reason that he didn't stand in a room with Wes Duncan? I think he's a lot more concerned to stand in a room with me and have me ask him why his former partner got a monopoly on the opioid litigation, or why he was in charge of suspending criminal trials for a year during COVID and, violating the 6th Amendment to speedy trial. I think there's a lot more issues that he would have to address as the top prosecutor of the state than standing in a room with me. I think that's a red herring completely.
All right, let's take a break. We'll come back. Lots more issues to talk to you about, and we'll be right back after this timeout.
Reckless Washington spending is driving up prices for Nevadans. Senator Catherine Cortez Masto voted to allow hundreds of millions of dollars of COVID relief funds to be wasted on frivolous projects not in Nevada. More silly inflationary spending. Senator Cortez Masto voted to allow a college to hire a poet in Connecticut and funding for 18th century French operas in Washington, D.C.? Tell Senator Cortez Masto to start voting against wasteful spending to stop inflation.
A business like mine has small margins. This is a working fleet, 5 trucks, all over 100,000 miles. Every time we fill up, we're dumping profits into the tank. That's what burns me up about Adam Laxalt. Big Oil has spent millions in support of his campaigns, and Laxalt spent years at a law firm that represents Big Oil. He pocketed millions working there. Some of us have real jobs and need someone getting serious about gas prices. Big Oil has enough senators. They don't need more help from Adam Laxalt.
LCV Victory Fund is responsible for the content of this advertising.
The Do It Right guys at Nevada Heating have one mission. Your air conditioner breaks down today. We fix it today. Why sweat for days while your air is down when Nevada Heating can get the job done today and you can get cool again? For nearly 50 years, locally owned Nevada Heating has been getting the job done right. Call today at 323-5585 or see us online at nevadaheating.com.
Southwest Specialties has been making the homes and businesses of Nevada beautiful for more than 20 years. Their experienced designers and craftsmen create the walkways, backyards, water features, and a variety of outdoor cooking areas that add curb appeal and value to your investment. Call today or visit them at their website and see how they can make your outdoor spaces special. Southwest Specialties, creative, distinctive, beautiful.
This is Nevada Newsmakers.
And back on Nevada Newsmakers, we continue our conversation with Sigal Chattah. She's the Republican candidate for Attorney General. And at this point, we're trying to respond to some of the things that the current Attorney General said regarding you in the interview we did with him last week. He said that Republicans for Ford was entirely organic. You buy that?
The Republican support for him?
Yes. The group that came out, Republicans for Ford.
Republicans for Ford was entirely organic, and
yes.
Meaning that he's such an outstanding guy, and that's why they're supporting him. Is that what the insinuation is?
Your words, not mine, but that would sound appropriate.
Well, here's the thing. Look, I've made it no secret, and I said this from day one, Sam, that I'm going to do to political corruption what Eliot Spitzer did to Wall Street, and I was going to bring it down. That was the narrative that I said from week one. That was one of the main platforms that I really ran on. I know everybody thought that COVID and the COVID crises and the mandates and the shutdowns, but ultimately what I wanted to see was political corruption and in the state. So when you have, it's this establishment, this typical lobbyist, you wash my hand, I wash your hand, you scratch my back, I scratch your back kind of mentality. Am I shocked by that? No, not at all. Because I think everybody realized very quickly that when I say I'm going to end political corruption and I'm going to investigate and indict, I think at first everybody thought, oh, it's just a talking point. She's just trying to be a politician. But anybody who's been around me for more than 20 minutes understands that I mean what I say and I say what I mean.
Well, let's go to what I presume is the biggest issue for you, which is the opioid settlement, $330 million, correct?
A little bit more than that, but that's part of them, yes.
Okay, so I asked him about that, and he referred to it as a conspiracy theory that he had nothing to do with the selection process, recused himself from the outset. A committee vetted the very application. The job was too big to be handled within the AG's office. Eglett Adams won. He recused himself from the contract before he was even AG because of conversations with the prior AG over the contracting process. Where do you stand with those comments?
So here's my thoughts on this. Aaron Ford secured an increase on contingency fee agreements in the 2017 legislative session to increase those contingency fee agreements for private law firms. Okay, that was something that he pushed. It was something that, everybody kind of balked at, right? I can accept the narrative that kind of behemoth type of litigation is best done through private sector attorneys. I'm not going to knock that, okay? Here's where my issue is. Okay, we've got 17 counties, and I've litigated cases, and one of the cases was World War Weed with some of the top law firms in the state. Okay, I refuse to believe that out of 17 counties and municipalities, that really the real issue is the fact that he abstained from the whole process. I find that extremely hard to believe that this was happenstance. And it's not only something that I share as a sentiment, it's a lot of people, it's national law firms that share that sentiment. And, and let me just reiterate that as an AG, I also believe that absolutely Nevada firms should have, we should give priority to our law firms. But I know the type of law firms that we have in Nevada, and I've litigated with those law firms. We've got some outstanding lawyers. We really do. So I don't believe for 1 minute that his law firm is the one that should have received 17 municipalities in the state, along with the state.
So how did that corruption, if it is corruption, in your opinion, occur?
Look, I'm not going to speculate how that corruption worked. I don't know. But, you could look at circumstantial evidence and listen, and we've all us lawyers have won trials based on circumstantial evidence. If 1 + 1 generally equals 2, and I just find it you can't have that much of a perfect storm.
But circumstantial evidence of corruption, don't you need actual evidence to be able to make this kind of accusation?
Look, I mean, it's not an accusation that I've only made. It's an accusation that's been made for the past 3 years.
Okay, but you're running for Attorney General against him.
Correct. Now, let me explain something. I don't have access, okay, to those documents and those closed door meetings. Okay, there's BOE meetings, there's approvals, there's things like that the public does have access to, but I don't have access to those backdoor meetings. There's what the public is entitled to see, and there are things that the public is not privy to. So when you see such an action, okay, and yes, right now it is circumstantial, but if I guarantee you that if an investigation does show that, that there was, unclean hands in the process, then that's an issue. And again, and this has been raised over and over by numerous law firms, by numerous actors that are involved. It's just, it's very ironic that, that this has occurred. And I mean, at the end of the day, it would be the AG's job to investigate. Did he investigate it? Did he provide the public with that transparency? And I think the informed speculation up until now is because there was no transparency in the process.
He says that the Committee for a Resilient Nevada will determine how the monies are spent, and that's through the legislature, and go towards abating the opioid crisis, foster services, social services, addiction services, that sort of thing. Are you comfortable with that?
Again, listen, I'd be comfortable with any type of transparency, and I'll give you a perfect example. The McKinsey settlement, we know that at the end of the day, out of $45 million between costs, okay, now keep in mind all these lawsuits were lawsuits that the AG's office signed on to. It's not lawsuits that they spearheaded and they litigated and provided experts at trial, okay? These are lawsuits that they signed on to. Now, I find it hard to believe, okay, that when a settlement is procured, okay, that all these experts were reimbursed on a cost basis when no trial was done. Not only was no trial done, you were not the party that initiated the litigation. So really, you're signing on to a litigation, you're signing on to a case where usually if I'm a co-defendant, okay, and I rely, or a co-plaintiff, and I rely on lead counsel to really procure the whole trial, procure all the experts. And I think that's the issue that we've got, is the lack of transparency. So when you have a $45 million McKinsey settlement and 21 million goes to costs and Eglet's fees, that's an issue. How do we get to that point where almost 50% goes to the law firm on a case that you haven't even litigated and you signed on to? That's the type of transparency that Nevadans are entitled to.
Is that not common practice with these kind of settlements, though, where I remember interviewing Catherine Cortez Masto over a settlement years ago, and asked her what her personal involvement was in this settlement, and she said the cake was baked before I got there. That was her response. So isn't that typical in these kind of settlements that are multi-state settlements?
Absolutely. And you do have multi-state litigation, and you do have multi-state settlements. And I think the purpose of signing on to a cake that's already baked is to demonstrate to Nevadans that they will get the majority of those proceeds. Okay, so if Catherine Cortez Masto had signed on to a case and there was a disbursement, a majority of that disbursement benefited the people of Nevada and not the private law firm that jumped onto the litigation once the cake was baked.
All right.
There's a huge distinction between those two.
All right, let's take another break. We'll come back with some more topics after this timeout. I'm here at the Carson Valley Inn in Minden with Joey Whitaker, and you've got a lot of convention space and meeting breakout space for people. Tell us about what's available.
Well, we can handle a group up to about 250, and anywhere as small as 10 or 15. So it really depends on what you're looking for, what the customer's looking for. We're open to anything. It's a beautiful drive, and if you live in South Reno, it's probably about 30-35 minutes, so it's real easy to get to. It's not a long way to get away to the Carson Valley Inn.
Pro Group Management is the place where companies can find workers' comp solutions that are designed to meet their specific business requirements. As regulations evolve, Pro Group takes a proactive approach to clear the path to make sure your business stays ahead of the curve. Knowing your workers' comp program is optimized, you can focus on other important matters related to your growing business. Pro Group Management, workers' comp that works for you.
Truck drivers are some of the hardest working people you'll meet, delivering over 70% of America's freight and 92% of Nevada's. When there's a natural disaster, they're delivering critical supplies to help those communities recover and rebuild. Every sector of the economy and our nation's military rely on truck drivers. So let's take a moment to say thank you. On the open road or city streets, our truck drivers are rolling to make our economy and our nation stronger. Trucking moves America forward.
As you know, Reno is booming. Toll's development company is helping it grow with insightful design and development, building community with every project, adding beauty, adding excitement, emphasizing our shared humanity. Reno is becoming bigger. Toll's development is helping it become better, more livable, more enjoyable. To learn more, go to tollsdevelopment.com. tollsdevelopment.com.
This is Nevada Newsmakers.
And back on Nevada Newsmakers, we continue our conversation with Sigal Chattah. She is the Republican candidate for Attorney General. Were you surprised at the results of the Kansas election regarding the overturning of Roe versus Wade?
You know, I wasn't surprised, because I think really what happens, and it's the same thing here in Nevada. Look, you want the laws of the state to reflect where the population is from an ideological perspective. You know, and that's the best way to have laws enacted and have laws either legislated or procured is we want to take the will of the people. And, and as we know here in Nevada, the will of the people is to have abortion legal up to 24 weeks.
The AG, when he was on the program, said that he had concerns about the potential for states to whittle around the edges. Does that make any sense to you in terms of what could be done to potentially change abortion laws in Nevada?
No, and we discussed abortion laws. I mean, we know where the state is. When I was on here with Tisha, we know where the state is. And again, and it's the will of the people. Look, the laws should reflect where the population is. And, I don't think that there is any way that any legislature or any governor, any constitutional office can whittle around the laws of abortion in the state.
All right, and that's where we have to leave it. The time flies by. You are welcome to come back. If apparently there's not going to be debates, I welcome both you and the Attorney General to come on individually and discuss these topics, and appreciate you being here. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you so much, Sam.
And we'll be right back.
Ahern Rentals began as Signal gas station on Las Vegas Boulevard. Founder John Ahern grew the business by offering rentals. His son Don built on John's legacy, growing Ahern Rentals into the largest independently owned American rental company with 89 locations in 30 states. Don also brought his experience and vision to equipment manufacturing with Extreme Manufacturing and Snorkel. Today, Ahern Rentals continues to bring its family values to a new generation. Learn more at ahern.com.
With Nevada's only transplant center and verified burn center, the science is here. With award-winning cardiologist and the state's only dedicated heart failure clinic, the talent is here. With Nevada's most advanced robotic surgery, the technology is here. And with the Silver State's only designated pediatric trauma center, hope is here. All because we are here. UMC.
Like a traditional handmade basket, retail is woven into the fabric of life in Nevada. From big box to mom and pop, retail supports our communities in countless ways. Jobs for the disabled, team uniforms for kids, help for the elderly, and so much more. Retail employs over 1 in 10 workers. Retail supports Nevada, and we support retail.
RANNV.org.
Your good times are at Tamarack Casino. All new DC Cafe and Bar, serving breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Ooh, your good times at Tamarack.
Your good times are at Tamarack Casino.
Nevada Newsmakers Studio is located at the headquarters of the Nevada Trucking Association. Motion and purpose are a truck's greatest virtue.
As always, you can watch Nevada Newsmakers 24 hours a day at NevadaNewsmakers.com. You can also check our archive going back to 2005 on our website. Again, NevadaNewsmakers.com. We'll see you on the next show.